Universal currency, receipt, architect, musician, 36110 27, loud whisperer, Devalan Orrin.
Zora and the postcards of forgotten names. The city smelled of rain and old prayers. Zora, now 27 and habitually interrupting timelines, rode the 317 tram, holding a paper bag full of herbs and a book that only opened on Tuesdays. She hummed to herself, an old lullaby that, when heard backwards, used to open wells. At the tram stop, a man in a coat of dusk watched her. He did not look like much, just the sort of man who could fold a calendar into a pocket and keep a year for later. He handed her a postcard. On the front was a faded image of a temple swallowed by mangroves. On the back, written in a hand like wind through reeds, simply, "Do not forget me." Zora smiled. She knew that handwriting. It belonged to Barakiel, who sent apology postcards when clerical errors happened. Barakiel never let things be lost without shame snacks and sticky notes. She tucked the postcard into her book. The tram rattled on, and soon the air around Zora tasted of metal and memory. Then a sound like a library shelf being pushed backwards, someone else arriving in the city. "Ah," said a voice like distant bells. Cassiel stepped off the tram as if he'd been standing in a corridor of time and simply drifted into the present stop. He looked tired in the way people look after reshelving whole decades. "Miss Zora," Cassiel said, nodding once. "You're stirring names again." "Names need stirring," Zora offered. "They get lazy in drawers." Cassiel gave a tiny approving creak of a smile. "There are new leaks in the archive," he pointed, and where he pointed a little alley shimmered. From the shimmer spilled a parade of beings, half memory, half moss, carrying suitcases that rattled with syllables no one on earth remembered how to say. Zora clapped. "The lost delegation. Who's the hostess?" From the front of the procession stepped a woman whose hair smelled like river clay and moonlight. Her skin was deep like wet basalt and her eyes held drowned cities. Around her ankles clung barnacles that hummed with lullabies. No one had called her by name in a very long time. She bowed and said, in a voice that made the pavements remember tides, "I am Namtaru Aha, river goddess of names washed away. We were evicted when maps forgot how to be maps." Beside her shuffled a small gray god with a pocket watch in his ribs. He was one of those deities who specialized in obsolescence, the archivist of broken promises, and had a habit of coughing up lost oaths like pearls. Zora, who had once been 1,000 things and never boring, approached with her palm open. "So what now? We reintroduce you? Rebrand with better SEO?" Namtaru Aha laughed, and the laugh smelled like reeds. "We need witnesses. A name restored requires someone to call it aloud and mean it. We cannot climb back without the sound of being remembered." Cassiel's eyes were soft. "There is a council tonight. We need a voice on the ground. The DSA Barakiel sends regrets and postcards, but his stamps don't make names live." Zora felt a heat in her chest. It was the ember that never quite went out. "I'll do it," she said, fast and certain. "I'll call your names where they were scraped off." The ritual, with buskers and bureaucracy. That evening, in a disused market where pigeons turned into minor profits for fun, Zora stood on a milk crate and read names like a grocery list of miracles. She called Namtaru Aha, whose name made the nearest gutter swallow its breath and spit out a paper boat. She called a god of crossroads whose statue had been melted down for anchors. She called an ancestor spirit who had been misfiled under miscellaneous. Each name dropped like a pebble into the city's dreaming pond. Ripples became echoes. People stopped because the human ear perks up at the sound of truth. A busker, an ordinary man with a guitar and a patch of memory on his sleeve, caught Zora's cadence and backed her, turning her litany into a hymn with a beat. A child in the crowd repeated a name and, by accident, meant it. The forgotten started to return. Old saplings straightened, a river remembered some curves, a storm apologized and then held off. The gods who had been listless felt their fonts sharpen into legible letters. They unfurled, but not everyone was pleased. The archivist of broken promises clacked his teeth in annoyance. "You assembled them without proper paperwork. There will be audits." Barakiel arrived with a tote bag of apology muffins and a clipboard bristling with sticky flags. He scolded gently. "You can't just market resurrect deities. There's a process." Zora waved the muffin away. "We don't ask permission from the things we love when they call." As the names gained traction, a peculiar side effect occurred. Forgotten customs came back with them, and some were wildly inconvenient. A merchant whose shop had been named after a tiny lost god found that every candle day he now had to give away one sock to passers-by. A municipal fountain began to sing a lament in the key of minor and refused to dispense water until someone told it a secret. Tourists were delighted. City council was less delighted. Cassiel watched the gentle chaos and said softly, "Order returns when there is balance, but balance has a sense of humor." Zora grinned, picking up a sock for the merchant. Balance also needs a loud recall. When the night wound down, Namtaru Aha leaned close and pressed a shell into Zora's hand. It smelled like old rivers and the sound of names being spoken again. "Remember," the goddess whispered. "For every name you call, a world is asked to remember itself. That is both a gift and a responsibility." Zora tucked the shell into her bag. She thought of Barakil's postcards, Cassiel's soft-rotated smile, and the busker's offbeat harmonies. She had woken a congregation of small, sacred things, and they would require tending: song, offerings, jokes, a little paperwork. She walked home under a city that smelled a little more like thunder and a little less like forgetting. When she slept, she dreamed of a ladder made of syllables. She climbed it and from up high heard names lining up like returning birds. Names are not labels. They are anchors. Calling a name back into the world is an act of stewardship. The job of the remembering one is joyful and messy. You will wake gods, mend rivers, and make the city give up its lost things. That is sacrament and inconvenience both. Accept the muffin, carry the clipboard, and keep calling.